3, 2, 1, go. 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning from Cynthia Rose Healing Art Sanctuary in Monument, Colorado. Happy Sunday. I'm here with my special guest. Ooh, I just did a thing. Maybe we just went live now. Yeah, maybe. Anyway, good morning from Cynthia Rose Healing Art Sanctuary in Monument, Colorado. We're here on this beautiful day thinking about things, and we'd like to share some thoughts with all of you. And we'll open up to a Q&A at the end. So, special guest, still here, can't fly home.
Yep.
I like having him here. Sheldon Raybird.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah, I just got out of the lab. I was working on time travel experiments, and as you can tell, things are getting a little serious.
It gets kind of hairy in the lab sometimes.
Yeah. So, yeah, there's a lot of misconceptions about time travel through the movies, and I'm here to set them straight.
Are we going to talk about time travel now? Tesla knew something, I think, didn't he?
Yeah. Well,
wink, nudge, nudge. We're not going to talk about that today. The lab is top secret. It's a top secret lab. Not in Monument, Colorado. No. Okay. So, anyway, goofiness aside.
Yeah.
I think Sheldon's hair looks great.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it does this sometimes.
It does this a lot of the time.
It's because I'm a scientist. I'm a true scientist.
And musician, too. I told him this morning when he woke up that he looked like a composer.
Oh, yeah.
He looked like a real composer. Yeah. So, okay. We've been having conversations in the last little bit about a lot of things. Yeah. So it's kind of like hey, if you guys, I'll say this first before I say anything else. If you guys are on here, if you're watching, pop a comment in there and say hello, because we can't see on this new, how did we end up on the new Facebook thing again?
I think they're just moving everyone there.
Oh, yeah. Maybe there's no option anymore in the video.
Yeah.
Which allows people to be a little more incognito when they're watching, but I like knowing who's on here with us because it's nice to say hi. So if you're on here watching, please do pop a comment in there and say hi, and then we can say hi to you, and then we'll know you're here with us. So, okay, my thoughts are kind of all over the place, but what we wanted to talk about is just some of the things that we're thinking about and talking about and seeing in the collective, because we want to be a voice of or two voices of reason and wisdom and guidance in this time as much as we can. And no, we don't have it all figured out, but we've got. So, if any of you have been following my page, you know that I was posting recently about, please be responsible. I post a lot about this. Please be responsible with the information that you're sharing, and please be responsible with how you're integrating the information out here in the external world. And if you're looking at your world, period, it doesn't even matter what it is, through a biased lens of wanting a certain viewpoint, then you're going to find things that are going to appear to affirm that and be evidence for, oh, this must be true. But if you're not looking at the complete picture, then you're not seeing the whole thing, and you're not coming to a conclusion that is actually based in fact, evidence, and rationale. And we need to be very, very conscientious right now about what energies we are feeding into. Okay. And that's really what it boils down to. And, I certainly don't want to make it sound like I'm not for people searching for the truth and digging into things when it seems suspicious, but do it with a well-rounded perspective so that you're not going, because if you're going into it with a bias, you're only looking for bits and pieces of the information. And I was saying to Sheldon the other day, now I'm going to do a little experiment, which will be fun. When I have time, it's going to take a little bit of time. But I have a video experience with people looking at me through a biased lens and not, not seeking truth from the people. Oh, look, we can see. There's Gordon. Hi. Yeah, where was I going with that? I don't.
There was a post
Gordon
that you
distracted.
There's a post you made recently.
Yeah, about it was a video. Sorry, it was a video I recorded recently. Thank you, Sheldon. And I was talking about how the experience that I've had with people making up stories about me without knowing what my truth was. And I was speaking to what their truth was, saying, I was in a cult. So I was saying it like it was coming from me. And I was thinking, God, if somebody took that video and they edited out bits and pieces of it, it would look like I was admitting that I was in a cult and that I supported Satanists and, because I was saying those things. So if you take that's just a really easy example of understanding how if you take a part of the whole out of context with the whole, then you're only getting a part of the story and you can spin that any fucking way you want. It's what they're doing, it's what a lot of people are doing. And they're doing this, to make really, are we speaking the truth to be helpful and beneficial and to help in the entire human race? You really look at what options are for sharing things that you see online that are very misinformed. Please do not share misinformation. Do your research yourself. And if you can't do your research yourself, look at the information and go, okay, well, I'll take that into and move on. Because, sharing this stuff is just, you can see it. If you're looking and watching, you can see what happens. For example, this thing with the artist. Well, I'm finding that I think people are thinking she's actually someone else, a different artist. She doesn't procure, as far as I can tell, all the energy, but she's not the one that's procuring art for these people that have some fairly disturbing art that goes beyond, dark images. It's
which artist are you talking about?
Marina Abramovic. So
okay, just to be sure.
Yeah. So people are sharing information saying this is true when there's no evidence, no fact, no proof that it's actually true. We don't know what that person's truth is. And it's really fucking irresponsible, basically, is kind of where I'm going with that. If you're presenting information, like I've said in the other video, and saying, have a look at this stuff and think for yourself and decide for yourself. But I've been digging into this and I find it interesting. Here you go. That is different than saying, oh my God, did you hear that so-and-so is a pedophile? And saying it like it's fact. And it's like, they've got this woman as a Satanist, pedophile. She's part of a, pedophile ring. She's also a cannibal now. And the whole cannibal thing comes from her throwing this really bizarre doing this art installation where she had cakes that were life-sized replicas of two female bodies, and they ate the cakes. So now she's a cannibal, of course, right? It's like, oh my God, I can't even. So over to you, Sheldon.
It's a really weird place to throw it over to me,
right? Over to you. But
so,
it's just that whole like, oh, I'm going to look at this and blow it way out of proportion and be completely irrational with where I'm going with all of this.
Okay, so here's one thing I have to say about certain things like that. Why does it matter? First of all.
Oh, Sheldon, bravo.
So, first of all, what we experience in our daily lives, it's good to have some discernment about what's helpful for you and what's not. A lot of times it's not so black and white with that either, because sometimes an uncomfortable experience can help you grow in ways that you wouldn't have before. But at the same time, you shouldn't put yourself in front of a bus so that you have, something to grow from, because that's unnecessary pain. And, a lot of people might put themselves into a situation which intentionally harms themselves in order to grow, which it's not that helpful. But that being said, there's also this idea of accepting the truth that's outside of yourself. And, I'm not on a pedestal, but it's like when you let's say someone's telling you about the story that they were driving around, and that there was this weird cross section where like they nudge forward and then like they stop because they think the next person is going. So it's like, you know, and then they keep going. You don't know that story's true. You weren't there. And even so, it's just a story. Yeah, I'm still waking up. I got out of the lab.
It's a representation of someone else's perception of what's going on.
Yeah, and so when it comes to a lot of different truths, for example, I'm just gonna go ahead and like talk about it a little bit. Some of the things that are said about, like, there's this new level of conspiracy where before people would be like, 9/11 was an inside job, and people were like, prove it, and then they're like, okay,
Yeah.
well, here's a mountain of evidence, here's a few
mountain.
articles, here's this paper about physics and how things don't really fall that way, and and they will give you some very sound it's based on that. There's this new type, which it's not really new, but it's getting really popular, where it's like, oh, just take my word for it. Oh, look at all these posts by
Yeah.
this mysterious person.
Mhm.
They're telling the truth. You got to do it yourself. And if you don't believe it, then, fuck you.
You're wrong, and you're gonna die, and it's gonna be horrible for you because, right?
On the extremes, but I mean,
Yeah.
not everyone is like that. But
No.
what I'm saying is that there's this new attitude coming out where it's like a lot of people are really drawn to these types of stories. A lot of them could very well be true,
Mhm.
but with some of it, just with my intuition, it just feels like telling the story of cat and mouse so that people are invested in whatever they have to say. And I've heard people predict like, oh, the internet's going to go down for 3 days, or no, now it's going to go down for 10 days. They're doing some crazy stuff behind the scenes. And it's like, that was supposed to have happened already, and it hasn't. And so that's one thing. But another thing is, why does it matter? If that stuff is going on behind the scenes, then that's really cool. I'm really glad that that's happening because we need that change. But how does it affect you when you're living in where you are and you've got a lot of truth to uncover within you still? And like, I'm under the belief that we come into this life with to really get to know ourselves through this expression, because we're not always living as this thing. But yeah, I just feel like people, when they really, really just like dive into these, I'll call them conspiracies, but there's a better word for it. When people dive into this type of information, then it really seems like it's taking away from the deeper meaning of what's going on with everything, because we evolve together. You also evolve as an individual. And when you neglect your individual for something that's just exciting on the outside, then there's not as much value going on there. So, yeah, I guess that's what I have to say about that. It's good to know, and sometimes it's like, why is this important?
Mhm.
Though some people are messengers, they spread the word.
Yeah.
But some people, it's almost self-indulgent for some people, and so it's just, be careful. Remember that at the end of the day, you are where you are because of you, and it doesn't matter what else is going on outside. So
Mhm.
I hope that came across as a little more clear than the other example.
The other, it's all good. Put it all together. Don't leave any bits out. So yeah, thank you, Sheldon, for that. Yeah, I liked what you said about yeah, all of it. Anyway, I can't remember specifically the word you used, but I like that. So yeah, speaking to what Sheldon said, there's so much that's happening in our external world we can spend hours and hours and hours being distracted by. or being productive with. It really depends on the individual and how they're using that information to contribute to their own well-being. And then, like Sheldon was saying, we do need people, and we've had the long conversations about this. We need people who are willing to uncover the truth, but we need those people to do it in a really responsible way, and not not to be looking for people to agree with them, but to present, like I said before, the very polarized. And we're looking to bring ourselves into a space of being more well-rounded in the way that we're looking at ourselves, one another, and all things. And during this time, like what Sheldon is saying, that and at all times, but now more than ever, really what is important for us to be doing is to be going within. And like I said in my other video, if we don't know what our own truth is, it's going to be very difficult to find that resonance with what is true outside of us. So the main focus of our attention really does need to be what's happening inside of us. And that's very complex, that's not a one video kind of thing, but but as it relates to how we're interacting with the external, what is my agenda here? Why am I wanting to interact with all of this information outside of myself in a way that feels maybe charged? What am I feeding into within myself, in the alignments that I'm making in my external world with the information that I'm feeling drawn to? Is it helping me? Is it helping me? Is it helping anybody else? Is it helping all of this? And we live in an age of information that's immediately accessible, and that's wonderful. But there's also a lot of, like I said earlier, misinformation that we can get our hands on, and then we can get really confused, and we can confuse one another. And I started saying this before, but I didn't finish. Just be very conscious of what energy you're feeding into when you're doing these things. So what energy are you feeding into within yourself? And then what are you feeding into with the things that you're sharing online? I mean, we're on social media, so this is what we're doing. We're sharing stuff. And how is that contributing to what we want to see in the world? It's important to notice, because if we're still in that mentality of, like I said, the pitchforks and torches and wanting to burn people at the stake and crucify them, we're feeding into the exact energy that we're pointing our finger at and saying, we don't want this here anymore. It's like, well, are you not seeing what you're doing? So yeah.
I really like the idea of, I believe it was James Mahu who wrote about this idea of believing and not believing at the same time. Where like one day you create a belief, then the next day you like take it out. Whereas like, it creates a more fluid state in your mind, in how like things can change and your knowledge of things can change all the time. Like, for example, going back to like some conspiracy things, that's a broad umbrella. Like I'm not even gonna go into the details, but it's like some of that stuff feels very true to me, involving certain things that I've had personal experience with. But some of the things they don't feel that true, but they're along similar lines. So like I both believe and disbelieve some of it, because it's like it will be proven true if it's true. And if it isn't, then I'm not too attached to the outcome of that.
Yeah, that's important, being attached to the, yeah.
Yeah, so like, what was this thing with that? Believing.
And not believing.
Yeah.
Not being attached to the outcome.
Yeah, so like it creates the fluid state in your mindset, which basically means that you can when things are really solid, they kind of hurt sometimes. Like when you believe something's true and then it's proven false, you're like, oh, I am wrong. I am
Yeah.
hurt because of that. And if you've been made fun of growing up, and that really hurts even more, because then you have that leftover pain from that. And so that's why I think a lot of people gravitate towards these types of ideas where they're like, I want to be right so bad, and they want to be different. And I'm saying this from my own perspective. This is how I was. So um it's just a sign of extending or compensating for a pain, usually in the heart, but also sometimes somewhere else. I don't know. But there's this common theme in a lot of posts that I see where, like, they share the deeper workings of a video game or the story of a movie from someone's childhood, and they're like, oh, my childhood's ruined. And it's like, if that ruins your childhood, then it probably wasn't like that strong. I mean, that's kind of judgment, but it's like discovering deeper truths about something, like finding out that Kermit the Frog is a puppet with like a guy with felt over
You
his
thought he was
hand,
a real frog.
and like two other like poles controlling the hands.
And it for everyone, Sheldon.
Like, I'm sorry. And, finding out that Santa is just Coca-Cola, culturally appropriating tradition, that type of stuff. Like, I guess it's similar to the feeling of the rug getting pulled from underneath you. And it's like, what foundation do I have? I just fell over. But would you rather have lived with that like false sense of like truth, or understood how things really are and not getting emotionally charged by that? Because I think that's a really important distinction moving forward, because I'd imagine in the next couple decades, we're going to be like discovering a lot of things about the old world that aren't true. I don't know what those are, but it just seems like a theme.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just be fluid, be water, my friend.
Yeah, and that speaks to not being biased in the in what we're looking for, and that I like that, not being attached to the outcome, because if you're feeling attached to the outcome, then you're going to be looking at things through that biased lens of wanting to confirm a slanted viewpoint. And where do I want to go with that? I really like everything you said. Thank you.
I can add some stuff if you want.
Keep going.
Okay.
For some reason, my brain is.
That's okay. Mine too.
Mm-hmm.
But that's.
You're doing great. I'm not.
Thank you.
Maybe it's the chameleon.
You're blending in with the background.
I'm blending.
But so here's the thing that's kind of big. Our human perceptions are really small, comparatively. If you look at the charts of the visual or the electromagnetic scale, you go from like radio waves, microwaves, all that stuff. Visible light is like a sliver, and then above that is like ultraviolet light and like infrared and all that stuff. It's outside of our visual range, like our physical eyes. And so that alone tells us that what we see is very limited to what's actually all there. And some animals can see those ranges above what we can, and below too. But on top of that, our memories usually are linearly based, meaning that like it's a story, like, oh, in the beginning this happened, in the middle this happened, and then it ended up here. It's linear. But sometimes the limits of our perception affects what we believe, and vice versa. What we believe about reality. If we think we're the only intelligent life in the universe, then that's going to affect how we see a flying ship in the sky. A bright light in the sky that's not a satellite and it's not a shooting star, but we're like, it's probably a satellite. We're the only ones out here. versus
Not going to
someone,
be open.
yeah,
Yeah.
versus someone has the understanding that we aren't the only ones. In fact, we're like, you know, we're really new to the party. And, we look up and we're like, oh, hey, it's ancestors, like they're,
Oh, hi guys.
they're at a different frequency. Oh, look at that. Hello.
Mhm.
Can you get brighter for us, please?
And then they go,
Thank you.
"Ooh."
Yeah. And like, just your, what you run from, the like background that you run from changes how the outside world looks. And as an artist, I really appreciate this nature about us because when you do art, for example, I look at the mountains outside once in a while and I see how the light hits them and I'm like, oh, that's so good. Because because I notice how many different colors there are, how the light and darkness of the shadow and all that works. And it's like I see more in it. And so I really appreciate it more. And there's this idea of it's like kind of a parable type thing where three people walk into a room and they see it's the same room. It's an electrician. He's like, oh, that light fixture is cool. That part could probably be fixed. Here, let me flip the switch and see how it works. You get a painter like, this would look really nice in a dark magenta. Let's see, that would look cool. And then you get an interior designer. They come in, they're like, we need a love seat there. Those curtains over there are all right, but we should adjust them this way. And they're all seeing the same room, but it's a completely different understanding, which leads them to what they're paying attention to. And so, with that in mind, when we look at these stories like in the news, or someone tells you a story about what's happened to them, where you're coming from is largely what you receive, also. And so, if you're open minded enough to, I guess, not be so um, solid in what you're believing, but just accept the information as it comes, then you get a more, excuse me, you get a more holistic and complete version of what's being said or what's being communicated, because then you're not so biased about it should be this way, and if it's not, you're wrong. you know it's just that we care about truth.
Mhm.
We care about people perceiving well, because then there's not as much time to argue about what is and isn't, because then we just move on to the important stuff. So yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
There's so much value to being open to pretty much an infinite number of perspectives. Thank you. Yeah, if you message me while I'm on live, it pops up and it's, hi Morgan. So I want to pause for Sydney recognition here. If Sydney's still watching, hi Sydney. Thanks for watching from Canada. See, I'm not being lazy today. I might be a little lazy today. So yeah, one of the things that I've really worked with over the last, my whole life really, but more specifically since I started thinking more deeply about a lot of things, or more expansively about a lot of things, is the value in being open to seeing things from a vast number of perspectives without with a sense of kind of indifference, I guess. And being able to look at all of those things, including other people's opinions and points of view, and evaluate that from a place inside of yourself where you're discerning what feels true to you and what doesn't feel true to you. And without it having to be charged with some sort of emotion, we can take the information that feels true, that feels resonant, and let go of the rest and work with that. And it can be a very neutral, we're really playing the role of the neutral observer in all of that, and saying, what is useful for me? What do I need to know is also important. And like Sheldon was saying, I think I'll say it in my own words, but probably saying the same thing. that because of the experience that we've had and the framework through, we're going to have very unique perspectives on all things based on the conditioning, the programming, the experiences that we've had. You know, I've talked about this before in other videos. Even language is important in that respect. So one person could look at a headline on something and have a completely different response to that through their framework than another person, because they have reference points for something in that that is charged with a negative experience, you know, or with a really positive experience. So for example, there may be a word that, okay, so let's use the word divorce. Okay. For a lot of people, that word divorce is supercharged because they've been the product of a family who's broken family. I don't really like that word, but that's the reference point for it. And then for other people, the experience of divorce has been really amazing. Like they get their life back and it's like freedom. So again, it just speaks to everything is going to be interpreted by the individual based on their own very unique experience. So like he was saying, our perspectives can be very, what's the word I want to use? I mean, biased is the same word that keeps coming up, but pretty much our interpretation of the information world is going to be automatically biased by the experiences that we've had prior to. Predisposed, yes. We have a predisposition. Yes, Sheldon, yeah. Thank you. I need help with my language. For some reason, I need to probably do some reading, but yeah, we have a predisposition to respond to things in a certain way. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And especially when we've had prior experience with those things and it hasn't gone so well. Yeah. So we really want to encourage people to be responsible. Hey, Sam. Neutral observer. Yes. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. When I speak to that in a lot of things, but when we can play the role of the benevolent observer, which is the neutral observer, creator self, basically looking at ourselves, our reactions, what's happening out here, we can be in the experience, but we can also kind of be a more expanded observer of the experience. We're seeing a greater, from a more neutral perspective, we're able to see a greater purpose to all things from that place of not being in the, oh my God, shit, and for some reason, I'm not doing very well with expressing myself today, and that's okay. I'm human.
Yeah.
This kind of started last night where I was okay. And then all of a sudden I just couldn't really think anymore. So I probably need to do a little harmonization of my own field. And so I'll speak to that for a second because, right now with everything that's going on, and this is part of the reason, here we go. I got something I can talk about. Yeah. Woo. This is part of the reason why it's so important for us to be responsible with the energy that we're putting out there and feeding into, and also what we're embodying here. Is that we are impacting one another. We always have been. We always will be, because we're all connected. If you think of it as cross points on a tapestry, and that the tapestry is an eternal tapestry, that we are constantly in a unified field having an impact on the collective with all things that we do. It's a co-creation. And for those of you who are being responsible with your own energy, thank you very much for that. And we're all still just trying to figure it out here. I'm not always completely responsible with my energy, so I'm not in judgment, but as voices of, hopefully guidance and change, we really want to encourage people to be very responsible with that. And we can call it, what information are you aligning with? But the information interacts in the physical world as frequencies and vibrations. And these frequencies and vibrations carry information, fields, they carry information, and they're being emitted out. Like think of it like little packets of information that are coming out like little water balloons, and they're like smacking into people, it's like, oh, here. And sometimes every once in a while, I feel really slimed by stuff. And right now I'm having an experience last night of feeling, picking up on thoughts that and whether it's somebody I know or not, I don't know. But we do have to be very, very conscientious about our own state of being. And that is more important than any of the stuff that's happening in the external world, because guess what? What you're aligning with is what you're feeding into out here. So if we're in a if we're in the mentality of persecution and like kind of almost this vigilante sort of crusader energy, that is so weird. You know, you see these posts. I will look on the comments on these posts where there'll be a post. Back a while ago, I saw a post that was like, all of these people, all of these celebrities are that, first of all. But why is this something that we're even paying any attention to right now? And there's nothing we can do about it. Hopefully, you know, this is being uncovered if it's true. But it's like, what is the motivation for sharing that information? Because the way I see it, the motivation for sharing that information is not necessarily in integrity with helping. It feeds into that energy, and you can feel it when you think about it. Look at the comments on any of those posts and see what is coming out of people in response to that. You know, and you get people that are wanting to murder, and it's not even fact. And they're talking about killing and murdering and doing even worse than that, these people that they don't even know whether this is true. And that energy is going out in the unified field. And because there's a very targeted happening toward that individual, if you think that person, especially not knowing how to safeguard and put boundaries on their energetic field, if you think that person is not feeling or picking up on those thoughts, you're wrong, because they are. It's how it works. Again, science. So, you know, my thought, first of all, when I see posts like that where people are pointing their fingers at other human beings and saying, this is true, this is fact about this person. I've had this happen to me and none of it was true, but nobody checked in with me, you know? So I know what happens with this. You're going to see this happening. My thought, this is how I can check in with myself and see where my integrity is. My thoughts go to that human being, and there's a compassion that I have for them and what they must be going through and all of that. Because if you think you have hundreds of thousands of people on the planet that are accusing you of something that maybe you did do it, I don't know, but maybe you didn't. And imagine what that must feel like for that one individual with all of that energy. Each one of you that is feeding into this stuff is responsible for that. So stop it. That's a human being. That's where my heart goes. That is a human being. And if it's not really genuinely helping, then it's part of the problem. It's really that simple. So, you know, what can we do about it is the question. We can each be responsible with the frequency that we're holding in ourselves and the thoughts and feelings that we have about ourselves and one another here. Because it's not about the rest of the stuff on the planet. It's about what we as human beings are choosing from a moment to moment basis. Who am I in this world and what am I contributing to in this world? Is it helping, or is it continuing to feed in to these patterns of disgusting bullshit here?
Mm-hmm.
You know, anyway, yes, that. So Sheldon, do you have anything to add? I'm speaking very
probably
differently than he is today, but yeah, see, this is what's happening to us. I don't know. We got to do something. We'll go for a walk.
Yeah. So, in light of all this, what I found really helpful amongst all these opposing beliefs, all these strong beliefs, is that, you know, so like I was, you know, feeling a little sad like another day, and I watched this video that was shared about hoop dancers who, you know, for those who don't know, it's a native thing where they have a bunch of hoops usually, and it's not like a hula hoop where you like wrap it around you, but they like dance with it, and then they can create shapes, and it tells a story over a period of time if they have a bunch, but you can still do some pretty cool moves with just one. And this video, I forgot who posted it, but it was just a bunch of people collaborating on this one hoop dance where like they would dance, catch a hoop, and then towards the end they throw it, and then it cuts to in the world catching a hoop, and then they keep dancing, and then like it just keeps going, and it honestly made me cry because I like it's medicine. Like I really am touched by the culture that I'm from, and despite everything that's happened, we're still here and we're incorporating ourselves into the dance more. Like, there's this one guy who he looked like he knew how to break dance, and he was doing some cool moves with his hoop dance, and I was like, oh, that's exactly what our ancestors would have wanted for us to use it, not only to keep the traditions alive, but also to express ourselves as individuals because it's a celebration. And I was just in a really deep heart space of appreciation for that, for human art and medicines that we're able to give without the need of a lot of different things outside of us. And then I looked down, and then there was some people posting some like stuff about the government, and I was like, why does that matter?
Right now,
like,
can you just enjoy the dance?
Well, I mean, no, it wasn't related to that. It was later on my news feed, but it was like,
I got you.
I was just feeling like it doesn't feel as strong as the appreciation for our human family and where we've come from and what we can do, because it just showed to me that analyzing and thinking, oh, what if, but maybe, it's not as strong as this is. It is what it is, and it's amazing, and I love it, and I'm so glad to experience it as a human being.
Love
And
that.
it just like it feels more powerful to be in that second state, because then you're empowered, you're completely there, instead of being, I guess, being questioning is vulnerability. You're like, I don't know, so what is it? And there's nothing wrong with that, but I'm just saying, like, in these times, especially while we're quarantined, we have all this time to ourselves. I think it's very, very important for us to look within and really see what we really appreciate and expound on that, really get to know it, because it's 10 times more powerful medicine than answering questions. So
absolutely. Thank you for that.
Yeah.
I really love the way that you express yourself.
Thank you.
Yeah. The idea of our thoughts and words and the things that we're aligning with being either medicine or poison is important. And you can ask yourself that question. What, or venom, what am I putting out into the world? Is it medicine? And if it is medicine, that's something that we can feel really aligned with and resonant with, and we can feel very passionate about, like Sheldon's saying. What are the things that, okay, so, speaking in terms of physics, when we're in resonance with any thought or feeling, there's a frequency that's emitted out into the quantum field. And just simply knowing that alone, if we, at this point in our human evolution, want to see the human race continue and actually do well here, then we absolutely have to be mindful about what the frequencies are that we're putting out. We have to. It's how we do this. So really going within, like Sheldon's saying, and determining what are the things that you feel inspired by, passionate about. What are the things that you want to experience here on this earth? What are the things that you want to see for the next generations? That's important. Even if you can go beyond what your personal thoughts and desires are about what you want to see here, and think about the children, What kind of a world would you like to see for the children of the future, the children now? And focus on what you can do to contribute to that energy being put out there. What is the medicine that our human race needs, and how can you be that? Because we are feeding into the things that we're focusing on. It's that, I think it's a Lakota, whatever they're called. It's not a prophecy, but it's a Lakota.
Might be Navajo.
Okay, the two wolves.
Yeah.
Anyway, what do you call that? It's a story. Anyway, but
I don't know what you'd call it.
The grandfather talking to his see my I don't know, I've lost words for some reason. The grandfather talking to his grandson and talking about the two wolves. You know, which wolf are you feeding? And the wolf that you feed is the wolf that will survive.
And these two wolves are inside you, by the way.
The two wolves
For
inside
those
you.
who don't know.
Yeah. Sorry, I'm not
Just
telling
jumped
the
right into
entire
it.
story. But if these wolves existed inside of you, and this is why I posted this the other day about are you seeking to understand the devil inside of you, or are you in fear and judgment of it? And there really is no devil, but we are of a polarized experience here. So we both have, or we all have both, all ranges of expression are existent within each one of us, and we can choose. The gift, like I've said before, is free will. So what is the free will choice that you're making to contribute to the evolution of our human race right now? Are you using your time wisely? Are you focusing on the things that are actually going to manifest what we want to see in the world? Or are we backtracking? It's really important. How are you treating yourself and one another right now? And are you really looking at the things that you appreciate, like Sheldon said? Are you using this time really, really, truly productively? And like we said, we do need people to shine the light on all different perspectives so that we can see and discern for ourselves. Like, I can't see her comment right now, but she said, can you scroll? Yeah. Scroll.
She said hi.
It's down. No, there's another comment. There's a whole comment down there, and then it just popped back. On that side. Other side, you got to go over. Boop. No, does not let you.
Nope.
Well, that's weird. Anyway, she said something about
Facebook. Change that. Thank you.
Yeah, this new Facebook Live is weird. It's not helpful. She said something about the truth and using our intuition to discern what the truth is. We've touched on that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think really, yeah, see, like, I don't know what's happening with me. To really consciously develop our ability to trust, nurture, and use depended far too much on what's happening in the external world to tell us what is true, instead of determining and discerning what is true from within. And if you're viewing the world from an internal lens out and having the information come in and then making an informed decision through the lens of observation and intuitive observation and self-awareness, then that is going to be a different experience than somebody that's just latching on to information outside of them and going, this must be true. This is now my truth. So I'm not very elegant in the way that I'm expressing myself today, but that's okay. I think that maybe a few of the things that I've said might be helpful and informative. Sheldon definitely said a lot of stuff that's really good. I did want
some
you.
That wasn't.
Yeah, right. It's like, I don't know. We haven't moved around enough today or something.
Yeah.